It's here! It's finally here! The Havoc Demon Hunter! I never thought I would bench my Legion main in BFA, but Havoc Demon Hunter never felt the same after we lost our artifact weapons. But then again, who did? Is it better now though? Can you take it to Raids and Mythic Plus? Yes. Well, that's what we will talk about today. Talents, gear, rotation, everything you need to know about Havoc Demon Hunter in dungeons and raids. A short disclaimer though, this guide will focus more on the basics and the meta when playing Havoc Demon Hunter and what you need to know about it. We want to cover as many specs as possible so we have everything for everybody out there, so realistically there's just not enough time to gear everybody to 400 eye level and do some hardcore content. In terms of talents, there are 2, possible 3 builds with a few variations in between. In this video, I will focus on the one that's more popular and is being used by top high-end demon hunters, specifically the demonic build. This build works great in raids and dungeons and generally any content you choose to do. You can switch some talents around depending on what azerite pieces you get as well. Starting off with the first row, we have Blind Fury. This gives I-Beam 40 Fury generation and lasts 50% longer. I-Beam is a big part of our rotation since it gives us the meta form from a talent down the line. Fury generation is also very important because our main spenders pretty much are our main source of DPS, so this talent works really well to complement that. Second row, Immolation Aura. Not restricted to Vengeance anymore, Immolation Aura functions similarly. We have an AoE damage dealing aura around us that will also generate 80 Fury over 10 seconds. Again, we can continue with the same argument that whatever we do when not using our spenders, we generate resource for them. Not very complicated. Next row, take Trail of Ruin. Blade Dance has become a lot more important in single target, firstly due to this talent, another down the road, and an azerite trait. There really isn't much to discuss about this particular talent, it's just more DPS. There is a note I want to make here though. Blade Dance occurs as a series of slashes and you can move during these slashes. As such, you have to be careful to make sure that the last slash hits as many targets as you can, since that's where the majority of the damage will come from. Especially in ad phases or when the bosses are clumped, like the Jetfire or Jaina with her clone. Next row is down to your preference. Since the theme of the guide is basic stuff for new and returning players, I recommend taking Netherwalk. Netherwalk is an insane cooldown. It provides total immunity to damage, which helps a lot when learning a new class, tackling very difficult content, and most of all, once you actually know the encounter, you can soak entire mechanics with this talent, which is what most people use it for in the high-end scene. For instance, Buon Samdi's pack. This is a debuff that deals lethal damage after a short while. Netherwalk will be your own little bubble to save you. Next up, a non-debatable talent is First Blood, which is what makes Blade Dance a single target option. Take note that the damage it provides will only be applied to the first target hit, regardless if you are fighting a clumped group. This talent alone makes Blade Dance your hardest hitting ability that takes a global cooldown aside from I-Beam, though I-Beam is a channeled spell that can be interrupted. Next up is a toss-up between Unleashed Power and Fell Eruption, both working on your stuns. Fell Eruption is a single target one that takes Fury, which I wouldn't recommend for raiding. There are a few situations where you can use it, like the Zhuen Tiger on Jadefire Masters, Raptors on Conclave, and so on. Both that can be stunned with Chaos Nova at the same time. Chaos Nova, however, does not use Fury, is AoE, and shatters Soul Fragment on top of everything else, which, if going by sheer versatility, it has more than Fell Eruption. As such, this is the one I recommend taking, but it doesn't make it the best for all situations, so keep that in mind. Last row, nor surprise, Demonic. Demonic is a talent that makes your I-Beam put you into a metamorphosis state for 8 seconds, at the end of its cast of course. A few notes here as well concerning its synergy with metamorphosis, the actual DPS cooldown. The duration each of these two abilities provide will always stack and never overlap. What does this mean? Well, scenario A. You start the combat by leaping in with your meta cooldown that gives you 30 seconds of meta. Next up, you press I-beam that gives you 8 seconds. The I-beam will essentially add those 8 seconds on top of your existing 30. And again when you cast it a second time, which you should manage based off of each one's existing cooldown. Scenario B, you start combat by doing an I-beam at the end of its cast, giving you 8 seconds of meta. After that, you press Metamorphosis for the additional 30 seconds, leaving you with around 37 seconds of meta by the time the animation finishes. So you should never try to delay one in the favor of the other. I know that in Legion this mechanic didn't work properly. Once you were in meta, your I-beam could only prolong your meta once. Maybe that was because I-beam had a reduced cooldown at the time that could potentially give you infinite metas. Good times. Guess Blizzard didn't want the game to be fun anymore. For dungeons and general AoE situations, the only real talent you will want to switch is Trail of Ruin for Fell Barrage. This bad boy is simply an AoE dealing machine and completes your role as an AoE burst class. Before going into the details, I like to take the time to mention simming. This is my favorite part of every video. I enjoy doing this every time. Simming is very important if you are serious about gearing yourself properly, be it either for general items to know what stats to aim for, or trinkets and azerite traits. The easiest way to sim yourself is to go to raidbots.com and use the website. You don't even need an account, just input your character details. Once you sim yourself, for stats in this case, you'll get your strongest stats in a list, like me. Weapon DPS means that your weapon needs to be as high of an eye level as possible and obviously not a caster weapon. Agility is my strongest stat, but that's because my eye level is something like 360 as of recording this guide. The higher you get on your gear, the less important agility will be. Versatility and crit seem to be pretty close to each other, with mastery being clearly the shittiest. You can follow my weight as a reference since my Demon Hunter is wearing pretty generic gear. Once you simmed yourself, you will know what items you need to equip. Moving on to trinkets, things change a bit. Trinkets have procs and effects which are not public but can be found through testing. The people who did this already are working on the bloodmallet.com website, which gives us a list of the strongest trinkets ranked, based off of DPS. These are the best trinkets for single target and raiding in general. The ranking has been made to take into account the overall DPS they provide depending on their eye level. For AoE and dungeons in general, we have this ranking, which is pretty similar to the first. The eye level that they drop matters, and since that's a factor I cannot take into account too much here, let's just say that the trinket you want to farm is Kimball's Razor Claw. This bad boy drops from the Conclave of the Chosen. The next one on the list is Deadeye Spyglass that drops from Siege of Borealis. Once you get trinkets such as the Spyglass, you might want to resim yourself, since these that proc with a massive stat boost might alter your stat priority. Clearly, these trinkets are best in slot for both situations, but that doesn't mean all other trinkets are shit. I won't list all of them, but you can find them on bloodmallet.com if you are interested in farming specific ones. Let's move on to azerite traits. The general ones you want to keep an eye out for when raiding are these ones. Not a large difference between them, especially not like other classes. And for dungeons, some of the best ones can be found in engineering goggles, like Barrage of Many Bombs, which is good for many classes. But when you start to stack the traits, then Treacherous Covenant is the best one for both scenarios. For single target, Furious Gaze is a very good second option. In dungeons you can and should opt for Eyes of Rage to reduce the I-beam cooldown. Although not in the top of the list, two traits seem to be used by a lot of people, and if I had to choose, I'd pick them as well. Chaotic Transformation is an interesting one where your rotation can change a bit, and regardless of single target or AoE, most mythic raiding Demon Hunters use Revolving Blades more so than Treacherous Covenant. Revolving Blades works really well with the Blade Dance build, a build that excels in all situations, while Treacherous Covenant does not benefit if you are below 50% of your total HP. The rotation is in the next section of the video, but before we go there, consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel, and also click the little bell thingy. Plus, you'll find on our channel a lot more class guides, videos, and more stuff about PvE and PvP in general. For the rotation and priority system in general, there's not a big difference between the single target rotation and the AoE one, simply because the most important abilities to cast are all AoE and deal the most single target damage, all at the same time, and they all have a cooldown. So no matter how you look at it, the rotation is the same. Good? Bad? Boring? Maybe. But then again, what Havoc lacks in complexity makes up for in pure crazy fun, which it is. There is the momentum build, which right now is simming more for me and would like to make a video on it, but of course if you guys want it. I played the momentum build back in Legion when demonic was the least popular one and was a bit sad when it ran out of fashion. Momentum, that is. Let me know in the comment section below if you would like to see it. But on to our own things. For the demonic build and also non-demonic build that uses the chaotic transformation trait, you need to do this opener. Immolate 2 seconds before the pool, followed by a potion just before entering combat. Next up is Demon's Bite to reach 30 Fury. Once you have 30 Fury, use Eye Beam, which will put you into meta. Use Death Sweep, the Blade Dance skill, once you are in meta. After that, actually go into meta by using the actual cooldown. Follow it up with Annihilation and continue with the priority list. The priority is essentially a list of abilities you need to press from the most important one to the least. It's not your rotation, but rather a guideline of what abilities to use in what order depending on their availability, so you can maximize the damage output. Metamorphosis is your most powerful ability to press. Immolation Aura is next on the list in terms of importance. After that, it's Blade Dance or Death Sweep, depending on what form you are in. Eye Beam next, followed by Chaos Strike or Annihilation. Follow this with Demon's Bite to generate Fury. As you can see, all the most important abilities are all AoE, so the same rotation and priority can be used in dungeons. Of course, you'll have the occasional Chaos Nova and Interrupt, but that will fall upon your own judgment. For consumables, you have quite a few options, and this is still based on your own stats. So before I put forward my recommendation, sim yourself and remember, you can pick what works best for you. In keeping up with this video, go for versatility for the rings, or haste if haste is simming better for you. The weapon is where you can play around depending on your stats. I would recommend versatile navigation on one and deadly navigation on the other. Since ideally you want to get the haste trait on your azerite gear, versatility will usually sim better for you. For gems, get one Kraken's Eye of Agility and the rest versatility gems. Flask and potion will be agility, while the food will be a toss-up between haste or versatility, down to you again. The feast is always good if you're doing guild runs or if your guild can help you with feasts, or vice versa. Now, if you're into hard-hitting, fast-moving classes that like to point their middle finger at the GCD system, check out our Fury Warrior guide. It has a way of being similar to Havoc Demon Hunter, and boy, is it a blast to play. Thanks for watching the video, I've been Flame, and I'll catch you guys next time.